Are you somebody who feels like you're boxed in by life? Like there's one role for you and one role only? Well, I have a treat for you today. A dear lifelong friend of mine who has just inspired me throughout his life with his dynamic life and just the choices he's made and the hats he's put on. And I'm sure he's going to inspire us all here today with a lot of lessons learned and sharing. My name is Gabriel Grease, host of the Navigating Leader podcast, where you awaken your vision and live boldly. I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Erik Brine from Jamestown, Rhode Island. He's an Air Force officer, a public servant, music manager, a whiskey producer. This guy has done so many things in his life, and he always does it with class and style and grace. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Erik. How you doing today, Erik?
I'm doing good, Gabe. It's great to catch up with you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. What an honor. I love the background. It says a lot. Tell me about the Navy picture behind you. I think there's a family reference there, I'm going to guess.
There is, yeah. That's actually my grandfather who spent some time in the Navy. I come from a bit of a military background, not always necessarily by choice. My dad was drafted. 3 out of 4 of my grandparents, none of whom I met, actually served in World War II in the Army Air Corps, the Army and the Navy.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, service runs in your blood, and I had the chance to serve with you a couple different times in DC, and it is who you are to be, and thank you for still wearing the nation's cloth and ensuring our nation's security.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thanks.
So I'm going to hit a couple of things. We've talked about lots of hats. You're a city council member in Jamestown, right? It's a different title though in Rhode Island, right? Isn't it? It's not city council. What do you call it?
It is. It's town council because we're made up of cities and towns, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Same job.
And then you're still an Air Force colonel, and who are you supporting for the Air Force these days?
I am. I work at AFCENT now at Shaw Air Force Base. So that's a recent change.
And for those out there that have no idea what AFCENT is, what is it? What does it do? Why does it matter?
Sure. We're the Air Force component of CENTCOM, Central Command. So we're responsible for all things in the Middle East.
So it's kind of been a happening place the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's been fairly busy.
You got a little bit of experience there.
Got busier when we finished wars somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we have some pivot going on to the Pacific, so hopefully that can stay cold for a long time.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, and then behind you on the wall, Wing Lore. What's that all about?
Yeah, Wing Lore Spirits. This is my newest venture. This is a company, a whiskey and bourbon company that I've started with 3 other aviators. So it's an aviation-inspired whiskey company. We've got an American single malt and a bourbon, both for sale, 7-year. We just started selling whiskey online in 34 states just in this past August. And this weekend, we just went over 1,000 bottles sold in just under 3 months.
Congratulations.
We're pretty excited about it.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then we had an experience together, right? With the music promotion piece. Like I've had a few events and I needed some bands. Tell me about Operation Encore.
Yeah, Operation Encore is going strong. You were there early on. We've been around since 2014. It's called Operation Encore, a veteran music project. And it started out as a project, hence the name. It wasn't necessarily intended to be around here 11, 12 years later. But it started with the intent to try to create an opportunity for military and veterans who spent their early formidable days on boats in the middle of oceans, in faraway places in the middle of sand traps, instead of in smoky bars or living out of their van trying to learn how to play music and become a music professional. It was an opportunity to give those folks a chance who had served our country and were talented musicians in their own right, singers and songwriters. And we created this opportunity to fund their best song, right? Give them give them a chance, have them own their own music. And we did that originally as a record label, Viper Driver Productions. And by the way, it's way cooler to own a record label than to own a nonprofit, which is what Operation Encore eventually became. So when we realized that there was a bigger mission here, and it wasn't just about helping a small number of veterans, it was also about leveraging that powerful medium of music to help bridge that civil military divide, that we kind of eventually transitioned into the nonprofit that we are today.
Oh, that's amazing. So, and then of course, married, kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Married, 4 kids.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, immediately comes to mind is, how do you have the time? Right. And, to be a public servant, a uniform member, the owner or co-owner of a whiskey brand, a record label, dad, husband, like it's just massive number of hats. How do you do it all?
There's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead, Gabe.
Okay. Well,
I actually sleep pretty well.
We're never going to get out of this alive, right? We're not going to get out of this alive. So you're right. We will sleep when we're dead.
We will never get out of this alive. That's a fact. Some of it is time management for sure. One of the challenges of doing a lot of jobs, and like I think I said before, I've got 6 or 7 jobs, depending on how you look at it. It's a challenge because you can never dedicate all of your time to any one thing. But the culmination of all of that experience and the many jobs that you do oftentimes makes maybe the 80% of attention that you're able to give that job more valuable, perhaps, than somebody else can provide.
Oh, that's amazing. So,
and just because you're only around for 80% of the time doesn't mean you don't have like 110% of the passion, right? So you got to bring a lot to it.
Oh yeah. And so I kind of thought about some of these items as side hustles, right? When you kind of are feeling out Operation Encore, and then it turns into a record label and maybe this whiskey thing, and now it's growing and you're selling thousands of bottles. And so how do you do that? And how have you managed to maintain your persona or maintain your, well, let me ask it more bluntly. As an Air Force officer, right, you don't think of somebody being a music producer or running a whiskey brand. So how are you able to handle the intersection of all those things in your life?
So there's a couple things there. You talk about them as side hustles, and I've done that plenty of times too. I would almost argue that everything's a side hustle. Everything you do, every job you have is a side hustle. And if it's not, it should be, because your job shouldn't be the thing that defines who you are, right? It shouldn't be the most important thing in your life. It shouldn't be the thing that you spend more time doing than anything else that you do. So kind of everything should be a side hustle to who you are. So when you kind of think about it and look at it that way, it is, what are all the pieces of your life that you want to build? What are the things that are important to you? You need to probably support your family. So you need to make money, you need income. So that's important. So do that. You might want to give back to your community because you think service is important. There are a lot of ways to do that. Sometimes it's through public service. Sometimes that's part of your job. Sometimes that's a charitable act or organization that you're a part of. Sometimes it's doing something with your kids and coaching your t-ball team, right? There are a lot of different things that you can do. And all those things are side hustles. You're a dad, you're a coach, you're a husband, you're a friend. Like these are all parts and pieces that you put together of who you are. So it's all about trying to figure out, what do you want your life to be? Who do you want to be? And put those parts and pieces together. So for me, all of the jobs that I do, whether it's in my teaching role or as a business executive in Brackish Experts, a company that I own, or starting a nonprofit like Operation Encore, or starting a whiskey company like Winglore, or serving as a town council member, all these things provide different things for me and allowed me to express a different part of myself and do something that I'm interested or passionate about.
So you really summarized something I just absolutely loved and adored about you since I've known you, and that is, I experience you as having a real strong sense of self, right? As a centered person, not a performer, not somebody seeking outside approval. How how have you developed that way of being?
Um, Through experience, I think, just like anybody else. And there were hard things that led maybe to some of that self-identification. I remember one of the things that I remember from my dad, he kind of taught me early on. I figured out when I was a young kid, I'm never going to be the best at anything. I I'm I'm really good at a lot of things. I'm above average at tons of things. I understand about myself that there's probably nothing that I'm going to be the best at. But my dad always said like everybody needs a utility player. And we were talking about Little League baseball. He's like, if you can't be the best first baseman, still play first base because we might need a first baseman. You might need somebody in the outfield. You need somebody that can bunt. Like be able to do as many things as you can because it's going to make you valuable somewhere. And that was like brilliant advice. And he was talking to me, and I was probably 8 about Little League. And I remember that, and I still apply that to lots of parts of my life. But there was another moment, maybe 20 years later after that, um, when I left active duty, I did in part so because I had an eye problem, and it looked like I was never going to fly airplanes again. And it was my first experience, real experience of transition. And I've had a few of those since then. I left active duty. I went into government service. I left government service. And one of the things that I realized when I stopped being a pilot is how much I attached my persona to that. It's still important to me, obviously. I'm helping to build a company around it. But I realized it was too important and how much I leaned on that as an individual to define who I was. And now that at that point, I couldn't say that I was still a pilot. I was maybe never going to fly again. It looked a lot like that. What do I tell people I am, or when people ask what you do or who you are? If you're a pilot, you lead with, "I'm a pilot."
There's the old
My
joke,
buddy
right?
Tripp wrote a song about it. Yeah,
How do you know when there's a fighter pilot in the room?
he'll tell you.
Exactly.
That's right. So um, I realized at that point it became obvious to me how inappropriate it was for me to hang so much of my existence on that as what I am or who I am, right? And I see tons of people do this as they transition from the military because it is what they are, or at least it's what they think they are. Right? At least it's what they believe people see them as and what other people think they are. And what it comes down to is it's not. Even that's a side hustle.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I want to ask you a question as you went through that transition of surrendering your wings metaphorically, right?
Yeah,
Was there what did you come against your ego, and what did that look like, and how did you work through that?
absolutely. Um, I had to, think to myself, like, what other value do I have to the Air Force in this world? Like, it's one of the things that makes me cool. Is anybody going to think I'm cool anymore?
I
I
think
mean,
you're
of
cool.
course they should.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. But I wasn't sure if I thought I was cool, right? Wasn't sure if I thought I was valuable. Like what else, like what else did I learn how to do? I've got an undergraduate degree in physics and biology, and it was close that I made that happen. At my physics graduation, the presiding officer said that Erik is theoretically a physics graduate, as he referred to others as applied physicists and theoretical physicists. He referred to me as theoretically a physicist. So, like, that wasn't the thing to fall back on for me. Like, so what is it that I have? Like, what value do I bring? Um, I've laid a lot on the line to get here and be this, and it's the thing that I always wanted to achieve and achieved. But if I can't do it anymore, what does that mean for who I am?
So
That's hard.
what was coming out of that valley like, and what did you reference? Did you have any touchstones, or what helped you climb the hill?
I absolutely did, and I think it was uh, family and friends and responsibility, um, and some like faith in purpose. Like, I think it's important to believe that you are who you are and you're here for a reason, right? And everybody has to have that, and your reason may be different, and what is important about your life and who you're important to is different, but it all matters, right? And you have to believe that. I think that that's important. So when you start thinking about, I have a family. At that point, I was a young father, had young kids, a relatively new marriage. We're only been married for a couple years. I knew there was a lot of family that depended on me, not just my immediate family, but my broader family. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I try to put myself in a position where my siblings had looked up to me at that point and knew I'd have to provide for other family members in the future. And I had a lot of friends, and I know those friends depend on me. If there's anything I was actually really good at, maybe it was being a friend, and building relationships with people. At that point in my life, I don't think I understood how important that is, um, not just personally, but professionally as well. And I think that's what helped pull me out of it, because I realized, I'm more than that. I work my butt off. I work hard, and sometimes just working hard is like 90% of the battle. You just got to want it more, and I want it a lot, right? And I'm there for people. Like, I can be good at a lot of things. Think back to what my dad told me in Little League. Like, I'm a utility player. I'm not the best pilot ever. They'll get on without me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Air Force is a massive, massive machine. Well, I'd like to acknowledge you and give you credit for that. I mean, we haven't talked probably in 4 or 5, maybe longer years. I mean, I think we might even been when you visited me in California. Might have been the
That's
last
the last
time.
time I think I saw you.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we've talked since then, but
yeah,
it's been a minute.
but your quality and depth of friendship of who you've been to me over the years is obviously mirrored across, so many other relationships. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's important. And like you said, I've known you for a long time. When we reconnected, I was like, sure, let's do this. I trust Gabe. I'm happy to see what he's doing. Let's go.
You and me both. You and me both. So we were having a side conversation before we got started, and you added a letter to an acronym that I use all the time in my business. Right. So my business partner Kevin Sellers is another Air Force colonel, academy buddy of mine, best friend for 34, 35 years, and we use OT&E. Right. We organize our business, we train our employees, and we equip our employees. So OT&E is what our leadership team is responsible for. But you actually added another letter, and I think it's powerful. And I'm gonna have to take it. I'll give you ownership of it or credit for it. But tell me what you've added to OT&E.
Inspire. It's a key piece. I mean, we've learned OT&E our whole careers, right? That's incredibly important for an organization or a leader. You've got to provide that ability to get people together. You've got to explain to them what they've got to do. You got to teach them. You got to make sure that they have the right skill set, and then you got to give them the resources they need to get the mission done. But if you don't add that other piece of it, that inspiration, that motivation to do the thing that needs to get done, you're not going to get the response that you want, and in a lot of circumstances need. That inspire piece is the jet fuel.
How do you bring that out, or how do you manifest that or demonstrate it?
I mean, I think it's different in all sorts of scenarios, but the first and most important part is you got to believe yourself, right? It's hard to convince other people.
Eat your own
At
cooking?
least for me, that's right. It's hard for me to convince other people to do things that I don't believe in, or to do things that I wouldn't do myself. So it's all those other parts of leadership that we've learned so many times. Is you lead from the front. You lead by example. You um, need to explain the why. It's not helpful just to tell people to do. You've got kids. That doesn't work all the time. Like, that doesn't stop us from trying. Like, we certainly do that. But if you can get people to understand the why we do things, then they can buy in. Then they can really feel it instead of just do it.
Oh, that's amazing. So I want to open up here and just kind of ask you for a chance to drive this conversation a little bit. Is you talked about your kids, you've got your companies, you obviously have your service. Like, what are some of your go-to touchstones or maxims or some of the first leadership principle things that you instill or you teach maybe young lieutenants or captains as they're kind of beginning their journey that we might share with the audience here that they could use or employ in their lives?
Um, Maybe the first thing is that leadership is first and foremost about relationships and trust. What's the saying, right? If you lead and nobody follows, you're just a guy out for a walk, right? Especially when you're in hard jobs or you're in hard places, that trust is so important. If you want people to follow you, they have to trust you and trust that you know where you're going, right? It's very hard to do that. You can manage people without that. Managing is fine, but if you want to lead people, there needs to be a relationship there. There needs to be trust, and that trust doesn't happen by itself. Trust has to be built, and it's hard to build and it's easy to lose. So it's super important to respect, right? Um, so that's key. Those things take time and they take specific intentional effort.
Yeah. What's coming up for me as you say that is uh it would start with trust of self, right? To the point of am I eating my own cooking, right? And
Mhm.
then am I communicating that and am I reliable and do I show up and am I predictable, right? Yeah, I had commanders. I tell a story. I had commanders, some were your buddies, right? They're, just almost like you just got off a trip and you're flying together and they'll slap you on the back and tell you stories. Or some of the commanders and some of them are the turn around and pull the regulation off the shelf kind of guy and go to chapter and verse and read it. And you're like, okay. And I can work for both of those guys. The one that was always hard was the one that some days was your buddy and some days wanted to, pull out the record and like, which guy am I getting today?
Yeah, that's hard. I get what you mean by predictability there. There is some aspect of a leader being a little bit unpredictable that I think is useful, but not in a way that it ever questions your trust, right? Predict Sometimes being unpredictable could also be dynamic, right? It is, thinking outside of the box. It is admitting when you're wrong. Being convinced by your people otherwise that maybe you weren't going in the right direction. Um, but I think I think you're absolutely right. Maybe consistent is the
Mm,
right word
yeah.
to look for there. And I think that is key because as a leader, you want to be many of those things. You want to be somebody's friend, you want to be their confidant, you want to be their mentor, but you also have to hold people accountable. And sometimes when you're just their buddy, that's hard to do.
Hmm. So you've mentioned mentorship a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that in your life now at the level of rank and professionalism and success you've had? I'm sure there are lots of folks that come to you and are interested in how'd you do it. What do you share?
It depends on who I'm talking to, of course. But for me, the most important part probably about mentorship is that you do it
Mm,
and that you seek it, right? And I've done that lots of times in my career, and most of the times it hasn't been in like an official mentor mentee program established that has specific requirements and forms that you'll fill out. Sure, there are those, and I've even participated in some of those, but those haven't necessarily been the most useful. The ones that are most useful are the people that I go back to for advice on a regular occasion that I listen to and have learned from. Sometimes it's just from listening to their stories and experience, and I find that very helpful. And in return, passing it along to somebody else. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities necessarily to mentor back somebody that's mentored you before. That's not always how it works. Sometimes it works that way. But the way that I try to respect that and pay that back is anybody that asks me for that, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but anybody that's ever asked me for that, I'll provide it. Like that might just be one meeting and I'll sit down with you for 30 minutes or we'll have a Zoom call or a phone call. But if you're a friend or a friend of a friend, you call me and you want some advice on anything or looking for a connection or want to know what I think about it, I'll give you that time.
Love it. Love it. Well, you've been gracious in giving me time here. If there were one thing you wanted to share surrounding leadership or overcoming hardship or pressing through it with this audience, what would you share?
It's hard to be a good leader if you haven't had to overcome hardship. Resilience is absolutely key. And the harder things have been for you, the more times you failed, the better leader you will be, because you have empathy. And empathy, the more experience you have, the better you're going to be able to relate to more people. And your people will look at you and understand that not only are you a real person, but you know what it means to go through hard things. And you can come out of hard things and still be successful. So empathy is absolutely key in leadership.
I love that. Well, and we always grow, right, through those hardships, right? Yeah, there's a prayer that comes up a lot, which is, don't pray for God to take away the struggle or take away the pain or take away the, what you're fighting through. It's pray to be stronger, right? Raise me up to get through this so that on the other side of it, I'm, stronger, more capable, more empathetic, maybe even.
That's right. Never be sad for the people that you've lost. Appreciate the opportunity that you had to be with them. Same sort of thing.
Love it. Well, with that, we're gonna kind of wrap this up a little bit, but I definitely want folks to know, where can they get Winglore if they want to find you or connect. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
You bet. So this is our Bogey Dope bourbon. We've got a American single malt. That's over here. It looks very similar, but the label's a little bit different. Like you mentioned, this is inspired by aviation. So when you look at the logo, you may see a couple different airplanes there. Fighter in one direction, a bomber maybe in the other direction, and a W for Winglore.
I see a C-30 in there as well.
It's in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely in there. The bottle itself maybe is made to look a little bit like the fuselage of like an F-117. If you look at the bottle from the bottom, it looks a little bit like the inlet of maybe a 5th generation fighter. You have along the bottle, I don't know, see if you can see this in here. I don't know if you can read that, but you've got your Joker line up here.
Yep.
Right? Your fuel required to do one more mission set, right? And at the bottom, I don't know if you can read that.
Bingo, baby, bingo.
That's right. It's an emergency situation. You're out of Schlitz. And as you all know, in the military community, a coin is incredibly important for your organization, for you as a leader, and every bottle of Winglore comes with its own RMO here that snaps back in the cap. Bogey Dope is a brevity term. You probably remember those. It means you need direction to your closest target. We could use some expletives to, that may follow if you have to use that term. And nickel on the grass is a custom in our aviation community, right? If a pilot falls in battle or dies in an aircraft mishap, dies flying an airplane, when you lose an airman, you throw a nickel on the grass and you have a toast in their honor to remember them. So at Winglore Spirits, we're all about the aviation community, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny. We don't let truth get in the way of our best stories. 10% truth is all that's required. A good toast is a thing that we always want to share. And we come from a community that does hard things, that, has us risk our life to do those things sometimes. And while we take our jobs very seriously, it doesn't mean that we have to take ourselves very seriously. There's nothing more important than being able to laugh at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Well, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute honor catching up, and I look forward to our next conversation. To the crew out there listening, thank you so much for sharing your time here with us today. Go out and check out Winglore, check out Operation Encore. If you're in Jamestown, Rhode Island, or Rhode Island, make sure you look for Erik Brine on the ballot anytime he's there, and make sure he gets a vote. He is as good a human as I have had the gracious privilege of knowing in my time in service and in life, and it's been an absolute joy being here with him today. If anything here touched you or reminds you of somebody, please share this, shoot them a text with a link to the podcast, like us every place you find a podcast, share it, and continue to educate folks on the message of navigating leaders. I'm your host, Gabriel Grease. Thank you for your time. Until next time, be well and God bless.